Morris Gross and Christopher and Greg Smith and Sonia, I cannot pronounce your last name. Karpowicz are here representing the hospital and Maplewood Senior Living to talk about their plans and their concept. Maplewood Senior,
Okay. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Maplewood Senior Living. They own the place on Strawberry Hill. That's where you've probably seen it before. To talk about the concept for the former Y site on West Avenue. We heard their presentation a week ago, and it is we're very excited about it, and it's appropriate to what we are envisioning for the Wall Street West Avenue redevelopment plan. Mr. Gross has been on our working group for the West Avenue Wall Street redevelopment plan, and he's heard all the ideas and he's heard all of the things that we'd like to see, and has taken all of that information and incorporated it into their plan that they're going to present to you tonight. So take it away.
Should we stand up and speak?
No, you're fine.
Okay. My name is Morris Gross, and I'm Vice President for Facilities and Construction, Master Planning, and Real Estate for Western Connecticut Health Network, and that comprises of Norwalk Hospital, Danbury, and New Milford Hospital. I grew up in Norwalk, so I was happy when the hospitals joined together and I could come home, so to speak. I've always lived in the general area. But what I'm about to talk about is something that's very exciting. And as you know, Norwalk Hospital purchased the YMCA property a few years back, I think in 2011 or 12. I'd have to go back and look. But the point is that for the purpose of the hospital, which has its primarily outpatient or inpatient facility as you know it, and recently it added the McGraw Pavilion, which is primarily outpatient. We are, with our medical group, which comprises of over 600 full-time salaried doctors, we have very little space of adequate outpatient space in the Norwalk area. We have no branded building that serves outpatients conveniently and that's accessible, other than the procedural components that occur in the McGraw Pavilion. So I thought it's a great acquisition when the hospital purchased the YMCA. And in working with hospital management, what we wanted to do, if you're familiar with the hospital, the other physician-related outpatient services are primarily located in the older section on Stevens Street. Those buildings range from 1918 to the 1950s, and there's numerous problems in regards to infrastructure, in regards to size of the facility regarding offering contemporary medical services. And we have been working now for a while in regards to what would the best use be for the YMCA property. It is about 175 yards away from the hospital, so it's not very far. We wanted to make it feel like it's part of the, as we've talked to Tammy about this, and it's in the redevelopment plans, that is incorporated and feels like a hospital property. It would be as far as accessibility from the hospital, we envision everything from a sidewalk, a change that ties it back to, from the hospital, signage change, lighting change, are all things that we would pursue and work with the city to do. What would be in that building? So the three major components. So you'd have a medical office component, services such as imaging, CAT scanners, MRIs, all the various testing that's done from an imaging perspective, radiology, as you might know that term. Also physician practices, cardiology, pulmonary, infectious disease, endocrinology, women's services, all those type of services that would occupy a major portion. The hospital component of this particular facility is approximately 154,000 square feet of a total facility of approximately 225,000 square feet. Another major portion is assisted living, of which Greg and Chris Smith are here today, and they are the developers, but this is an area of which they are well known across the country. That would comprise and they'll go over the detail of that particular component, but that is another major component within this condominium complex. And the third is a retail component. And we envision having a fitness center, but in essence, these are not three individual subcomponents. They're integrated as far as the focus on improving health care to the community. So whether it ultimately ties to education that's offered at the facility, number of employees that frequent the general business district as far as shopping and other things like that. But the point is that the hospital, which is the largest employer in the community, has a number of major projects that are in process that will continue to enhance the Norwalk area immediately around West Avenue. They include everything from, more recently we opened up the Tannin Cardiac Rehab Center. We just announced we're putting in a new learning center there in the library. That includes simulation training labs where physicians, nurses, and others will be able to have rooms simulating operating rooms and other type components within the hospital as far as a learning center. We're also taking a look at the opportunity to enhance our inpatient component there and taking a look at how we can, the future for inpatients at that facility is something that we're scrutinizing right now, since the inpatient main pavilion, as you know, at the tallest buildings on that property are 1975 vintage originally, and then was added to in 1995, I believe 1997. So what we have is, we have a major investment in regards to outpatient services with the McGraw Pavilion. We need to enhance that because it's inadequate in being able to serve the population that we want to from an outpatient perspective. The YMCA property is well positioned to, in essence, field it as part of the property. We envision it'll be a taxable property, which I think is important for the city. But most importantly, it is a continuation of a mission and vision of the hospital to serve the people within the greater city of Norwalk and to be able to provide top-notch medical care. So the YMCA building becomes an anchor location for that to occur, together with the inpatient component and also together with other locations that we have developed in other areas of the general community, whether it's in Norwalk, Westport, New Canaan, Darien, Wilton. We have evidence of a lot of that happening also as we speak, where we have major hubs that we are upgrading. So between inpatient, outpatient, and the individual hubs in the communities that we serve, including Norwalk, but the largest one by far would be right in the heart of Norwalk, right near the hospital within this building. So what I'd like to do now is ask Chris and Greg Smith to comment on the project.
Okay, I guess I'll go ahead first. What we put together, this is a copy of the deck that we presented last week. We watered it down a little bit because there were some other things in there that we just didn't feel like that it was relevant, but it was to basically give you an overview of what we were talking about, which was really, like Morris said, rather than being this development that focused on siloed uses like medical services and senior housing and retail, but made it a center for wellness and healthy living. So this really, and I want to kind of run through some of the bullet points of it. As Morris said, it's 154,000 square feet of medical service, primary care, multi-specialty practices, about 72,000 square feet we're looking to do for senior living. That would have a breakout of studios and one bedrooms, and then 17,000 square feet that would be really what we envision there is just a gathering place for the community that focuses on wellness, and it can include education, it could include a cafe, it could have part of PT and OT and some fitness, and where seniors had an opportunity to be next to people in the community, and just a very intergenerational interactivity between everybody.
Would that be a requirement of the leases?
It's not a it was for the retail, and I think part of what we were trying to do was not make it be just a requirement under zoning. Like, how do we integrate it and so that we have synergy amongst everybody, and so that, you know, when we talked with the redevelopment folks, it was about how do we activate that ground floor and how do we do it in a way that it is of value to the patients that are coming for the hospital, the residents that are in the senior housing facility, the community that had access to that space, the employees that worked in the building, so that we were really trying to say, let's make something that is living and breathing kind of organism versus what you see kind of on West Avenue is more utilitarian. It's about housing and meeting the requirements to deliver retail, and it's not from an engagement standpoint. Our whole concept was, how do we make the hospital campus extend down into that corridor, get some connectivity and continuity between the hospital campus, this location, which really would be the flagship for the hospital, have it tie in to the West Avenue corridor, even with the bike path, and having some connectivity to the park, and really kind of tying that whole, make this be the cornerstone anchor for that area. And so I think by doing that and having that interaction, that takes care of that Maple Avenue, and having to address that, how do we do that? So it's an extension of the campus down into there. And I think, you know, as Morris was talking about, for Norwalk Hospital being a 125-year-old institution, this is really about, for the hospital and for Western Connecticut, a transformation time for them. And so it's part of their rebranding and identity and who they are and what they want to deliver to the community and throughout Western Connecticut. And I think it's an opportunity for them to not only do that for the patients and be, you know, create accessible medical services, it's also an opportunity for them to put a stake in the ground to protect their turf, and to say to, you know, Hartford Health or to Yale New Haven or to Northwell that, you know, this is where this is our place, and we're gonna protect our territory. And so I think that's another big part of it. But, you know, when I get into part of our whole philosophy is teamwork. And so when we first met, I brought up, you know, we're about collaboration, we're about communication, and we're about transparency. And we have this wonderful opportunity, not only for the hospital and for the community, but for us as developers. I mean, it's so exciting to have a chance to do something that's this unique. I mean, being in healthcare and looking at the development and how it's progressing. This is co-location of senior housing and having this integration of all of these different types of services. This is the direction that medicine's going in healthcare, and how it gets delivered to the community and how it gets delivered to the seniors, and, you know, allowing seniors to age in place in their population, and they don't have to move away, and their family is there. And, you know, our hope too is that having that component not only gives access to healthcare and medical services to the seniors, it brings people down because they're coming to visit their family, they're coming for their, you know, medical services that they might stay and go to the mall or go and, you know, go to the restaurant or go to the park. And so, I think that was a big part of what we were trying to do, as well as that intergenerational, like having that relationship and how things are beginning to change. And so, and I think another big part of it for us, and I think the hospital and healthcare in general, is about promoting wellness, not treating illness. Like, how do they get ahead of it? How do we start to shift that vision of what healthcare looks like? And so, you know, having the opportunity to do it with the hospital and be that close to the campus and be able to have the chance to be creative and bring in literally world-class partners that are doing architectural and design and general contractors, and focusing on best in class and allowing the hospital to continue to build its brand is the same with Maplewood and Maplewood Healthcare and Maplewood Senior Living. Greg can talk about it. He built a phenomenal brand that is about quality of product, quality of service, and I think the other important comment, and I'm trying to give you the big picture because at the end of the day, we're developing something that has all of those components. But it's for us, it's about experiential, and it's about the experience. So it's the experience for the community. How do those people come in, and how do we integrate the bike path? How do we, provide services and programs that talk about wellness and whole body, and how is it experiential for the resident, and how their living is, and how they're part of a community and not put in a place that's not part of the community. How is it for the patients in that, how do we design the parking structure? How does the flow work? How does it so that it's stressless for the patient? How is it so that they're wayfinding, they can go in and the lobby is relaxing and it's inviting, and so how do they get to their reception in their area, wherever service they're going for, that by the time they hit the exam room and their doctor walks in, they've already made the decision about the quality of their care. At that point, all the doctor does is has to perform. And so at that point, that brings referrals, that brings, it brings additional business from referrals from patients. They want to go back and have other treatments there. The other thing that we've talked about is it's great for the hospital for retention, for keeping employees and keeping great physicians, and it's just as competitive as it is getting patients that are now customers. It's just as important to get great physicians, and when you're building a building like this, and that's where they go to work, and their patients are happy, and their staff is happy, that's a great way to drive new physicians to the hospital.
Mind if I chime in?
Yeah, sure.
Great. So you're saying that the retail space is for the most part, your goal is to have it accommodate the uses that you're providing, either it be the senior living or the folks visiting the medical offices, for the most part.
It's about also the community. So like, for example, if we had an educational section where they could come in and get information about dementia, or if the hospital wanted to put on some type of speaking engagement where they had a speaker come in, it's about having a cafe where we could focus on farm to table. It's about having a fitness facility that's accessible to everybody. And so for us, it's really important to not be closed in and it's just about the patients and the residents and the employees, but it's also incorporating the community and that it's available to everybody. It's about promoting that. It's not an amenity to the residents to stay, and it's not an amenity to the patients. It's not like a hospital. It's about having it open and having it so that the space opens up onto West Avenue. It allows where there's parking available, where people can come in, use the fitness center, use the restaurant or the cafe, even if we had a wellness store. And so we're working on how do we do that to attract people that want to be there and they can be in that space, and they're seeing residents and they're seeing patients and seeing employees. So that is absolutely a part of it. It's about community, residents, and patients.
No, the only reason I ask them, like, if this, knowing the area, seeing where you're planning for the retail to be, but, perhaps you would just lease the property to a restaurant or something along those lines. Because 17,000 square feet is quite a
I think
large
what we
footprint.
would potentially do is lease to a third-party operator that understands health, like a health tracks, that understands wellness, understands programs, understands senior programs, where it's not just a straight fitness center, or if it was, it would be somebody much higher end, like Equinox Health. Those fitness centers where it's something collaborative, but we're kind of driving what that looks like.
Most sense. Just another quick question. I see you have quite a bit of parking. Is this parking to be available to the public? Because I do believe there's some portions of this that need some city property to be purchased by.
And I think, from what we've talked about preliminary, that it's open, that's and available, and so again, as an extension of the retail piece, that they would have access to park there.
Okay.
So.
And that would be located in the same lot, basically the
It would
parking lot in the
be. It would be on the boundary closer to Route 7, and we're still in preliminary discussions on the ingress and egress off of Maple versus off of West Avenue.
Okay. And what's Maplewood's affiliation with the hospital? Are you just is there?
Well, we've been, if I can interject for a second, I've been working with the hospital since probably going back to 2006 up in Danbury. And so we've had a great working relationship with the whole health network. from all of our communities in Connecticut, other than the one we have in New Haven County, where, you know, when you take a look at healthcare and how healthcare is delivered today and how reimbursements work and all of that, it truly has to become a collaborative effort in order to deal with the restrictions that you have with Medicaid and Medicare reimbursements. And so the health system will collaborate with senior housing operators, skilled nursing and rehab facilities. They'll deal with home health care agencies on really about the whole continuum of care on an individualized basis. And so we've been working with the hospital on collaborating and helping them to provide that seamless continuity of care for the last 5, 6, or 7 years. Especially now, it's become more ramped up over time as the hospital and nursing and reimbursements are being pigeonholed into, you know, having no other options, but really make sure in the bundled payment system where you're getting a chunk of funds and you have to care for that individual, and you have some risk with that. So in order for us to, or the hospital to provide appropriate care where people are well, they stay well, they're not readmitted, you have to have partners. And if you don't have partners, you can't do it on your own.
That's what I was getting to, so it's a partnership.
Yeah, so it's
Maplewood in the
right,
hospital.
it's a partnership.
The hospital will be running the medical services.
Right.
Maplewood be the senior living, and
Which makes us a little bit different than most developers. We're healthcare operators, and so we understand we're not just a straight developer that would say, I'm going to go build a 500-unit multifamily with that retail component. I hire a third-party management company, and it's a financial model to get to where I got to get to generate my return.
we're all familiar.
Yeah, so we are, and I think when Morris and the hospital, they were looking for a strategic partner, that's really our value add, where we say we're operators. We understand healthcare, and when Greg talks about the continuation of care, he knows what he's talking about. He's been doing it for 15, 18 years, and so he knows what that means, and he understands. And I think what that translates into, a great bricks and mortar kind of product that takes all of that into account when you're doing that design and what it looks like. And I think part of the conversations of us being here is making it collaborative to say to the city, what would you like to see as we're designing it, rather than coming in and just saying, well, here's what we're going to do when we want to get approval for design, but how does that work? And we talked about, how do we incorporate the bike path and make it so that that's part of this wellness center? What other things, how do we get it so that it opens up to West Avenue? And so we've decided we'd rather do that together than go down that path. And I think part of it is it's part of the community, and we feel like it's important in it's Norwalk Hospital. And,
And I think it's important to mention that when you look at, there's been a number of studies, especially with seniors, but it's not only with seniors, it's with general population. Now more so than ever, we're seeing that access to healthcare is the #1 priority, especially for seniors. It's absolutely #1. And it doesn't need to be seniors that are living in assisted living or that are in skilled nursing. It's for our senior population here in Norwalk and the surrounding communities that can have access to outpatient services that are all in one building, that provide everything that they need, where they can go with ease of mobility through a building, and they may need to go see a cardiologist and then go to get some blood work done, or they may need to have some imaging, where they can do that all in a seamless fashion within one building, and they're not going from Norwalk to Darien or up to Wilton. And what happens is there's a tendency for not just seniors, but for all of us in general, where you may go to the doctor, you get your script to go get an MRI, and you kind of you figure I got to go all the way up to Danbury to go get it, and you'll say, I'll put it off. I'll keep putting it off. And I think providing access to healthcare, not only from a geographic standpoint, but vertically through a building that allows all these other services, between primary care and subspecialty, that it provides easy access to each of those individual specialists within your own personal healthcare curriculum, if you will. And I think, that's really part of what's happening here, I think, from a hospital perspective. And then for us, from a senior housing perspective, it allows our seniors to be able to be in touch with the hospital, have access to them directly within the same building, if you will. And it provides us an opportunity to challenge ourselves as operators in providing these services to seniors that, is this the way that healthcare is going for our older population? And I'm sure all of you are familiar with the baby boom population, and we're still staring down the barrel of a gun with the senior housing population over the next 20 years. And it's only going to continue to grow, and our seniors are going to still need more services. And if you look at the demographic of seniors in Connecticut, and specifically Western Connecticut, the population is growing almost at 5 times what the general population is growing at. We have a migration of individuals that are millennials and some older adults that are leaving the state, but our seniors aren't leaving the state, and they will need more health care, and they will need access to it. And it's not just about geographically, but again, it's about vertical access, so that they have everything in one stop shop, and they can go there and they know that everything is done, and it's easy for people to feel that they have one place to go to, and it's one drive, and you're positioned well off of Route 7 and West Avenue and 95, and those are all part of the whole overall philosophy of wellness. And I think this project lends itself to, in multiple capacities, to us providing, in collaboration with the hospital, the opportunity to help our community live well, stay well, and be proactive and preventative in healthcare rather than reactive. And I think that is this is this fundamental shift from it. And and being able to provide and move healthcare out to the communities rather than having everybody go to the campus. And although this is an extension of the campus, which really works really nicely, it is a pushing out to the community to make it easier for them to gain access to healthcare.
You mind if I chime in again?
Sure.
So roughly of the 154,000 square feet, give or take, half of that would go towards the senior living, the other would be to medical
That's
services.
154,000 straight, that's just medical office.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then the
It's an additional
72,000 plus the
72,000.
12,000,
Correct.
17,000.
Correct, that's right.
225,000.
Okay, got it. So out of that 154,000, I guess we're often asked about, okay, how does this benefit Norwalk? And jobs is always, the top of that, one of the top questions we get. Are we transitioning Norwalk Hospital employees over to the new facility? Or are we opening up new offices and providing new services?
Well, right now, we don't have enough space to accommodate the needs of the community at the hospital. And other than McGraw, the McGraw Center, which is really more procedural, ambulatory surgery, gastroenterology, cancer, as far as physician practices, we're way short in primary care and subspecialty practices, as well as imaging services as far as that goes. So we have a multitude of services which every day, as I would tell you that one of the hardest parts of my job is I get calls every day, today probably 4, I need offices, I don't have enough space, I don't have enough exam rooms, I'm hiring 3 doctors. One of the calls was, we're hiring 3 surgeons, we don't have a place for the surgeons. We are so out of space, and particularly when you look at the fact that the way the world is going in healthcare, it's moving much more ambulatory off-site. The other thing I want to make a point is that we treat everyone regardless of the ability to pay. So it doesn't matter to us. We don't turn anybody away, and if you can't pay us, we don't treat you any differently than a person who can pay. And the way the world is going as far as healthcare is we will be reimbursed not based on how many times somebody gets treated as today on a per incident visit basis. We will be paid on keeping people healthy. So there'll be a population of patients, and the Medicare and the insurance companies will say, you we will give you a preference. If you go to Norwalk Hospital, and employers are doing it right now, Norwalk Hospital does it as the others, and they'll say, look, to our employees, if you go to Norwalk Hospital and you're treated by our medical group, and you have your lab and your x-ray, you have a minimal deductible. But if you go outside our group, then you're going to pay many dollars, or just the way the plans are developed. It's not unique. It's whether it's IBM or it doesn't matter. I mean, all the companies are doing it. But again, we treat everyone regardless of whether they can pay or not. That's really, if you look at the big picture, we want to take care, we want to improve the health of the community because it's to our advantage also from a financial point of view. Even for our employees, we have so many promotional educational events, whether it's smoking cessation, whether it's weight loss, whether it's you have your lab work, we get reductions if we use primary care physicians, subspecialty physicians. It's all monitored. We want to do that and expect to do that for the general community. That's our mission, to take care of people regardless of whatever they happen to have. But the world is changing as far as reimbursement, so we want to get ahead of it. We don't have the facility today to be able to handle that other than in a very small, sporadic, isolated locations here and there. We're opening up a few bigger ones now because as far as in the satellites in a different town. But we as a hospital don't have a large facility for the people in Norwalk that can accommodate the type of services that are required. It's just fortunate that a good decision was made to acquire the YMCA. It allows us to be able to deliver that service. But again, this is, if you look at, again, our focus, it'll be to bring a multitude of specialists there, imaging, labs. So if you go in and you see your primary care doctor, he says you need the cardiologist, well, you can go over here to the cardiologist. He's there this afternoon, or he's there, come in tomorrow. But you need lab work, okay? But you need an x-ray. You need that special test, whatever it is, that cardiac test, or pulmonary test, or you have diabetes and you want to see the endocrinologist. It's all going to be in that location. And it just makes it very convenient for the delivery of care and very efficient for delivery of care, which is critical. But it's also better care, because if you can create access to what Greg is talking about, if you have access to care and you can make it easy for that patient to go and get have that interaction with the physician or other health provider, that person, the proof is that person will be, as long as they listen to their doctor and they are diligent and wanting to get better, they'll get better. And so what we have, and the other piece I will leave you with is that we believe also that if you want to hire the best and the brightest people, you need an adequate facility. If you were to look at the old buildings that we have on campus, built in some cases 100 years ago, almost 100 years ago. If you look at Tracy building, 100 years old, 1918, 1929. The failures we have with infrastructure, keeping it hot or cold temperatures for people to feel comfortable. So what happens is the patients don't want to go there either, and the parking is not easy. And the distances that people have to walk once you get out of your car, if you're in Norwalk Hospital, look at some of those long hallways now. How it's like going in a time machine from one end of the hospital to the other end. You're basically going from newest area in McGraw, and then you're going to 1975, and then you're going to 1950, and then 1929, and so on. And it's tough as far as being able to provide adequate service. This building will provide that opportunity. The parking ratio we established for this building is higher than what is even required. So that'll be convenient, as Chris talked about, to be able to get out of your car and have it easy to get to inside the lobby and then find where you have to go and get out in reverse and so on and so forth is important. The fact that the building will be a green building, we would look to make it contemporary from the point of view of all of the environmental type things are key. But more importantly, it allows us to deliver service. We just can't do it right now.
So it's safe to say that we know that in our, you're running out of space, there's more of a demand, and it's safe to say that the new facility, yes, there will be some transition of current employees within Norwalk boundaries,
Well,
but
I think,
also the
well, no,
addition
I think
of
it's,
more.
yes, there'll be, well, there'll both. There'll be
Right.
employees that come from inside the hospital, outside the hospital, to
So there
this-
will be an
to
increase
this
of
building.
jobs to the
And
city
there'll
of
be,
Norwalk
yes, and there'll be
following this
other,
development.
because the services we have, I just give you examples, so the pulmonologists have been after me, and the cardiologists, they have no space, they're hiring more doctors, and so I've got to put people temporarily in New Canaan, temporarily in other locations. They need to be, from an efficiency point of view, they need to be together, and then they can grow. But right now, I don't have that ability for those practices to grow. So I see more people frequenting downtown, more money being spent. Again, hiring the best and the brightest people that we want to be able to do by providing contemporary facilities. There's no negatives to this, it's only positive. And we want to do it. We think it's we know it's our mission, and we want to be able to provide those services.
Right.
And then in senior housing, you're probably looking at 80 new jobs as a result of putting in the 72,000. 80.
And I think the other, to Morris's point, not only are you expanding the services that are on the hospital, that's more jobs, but also when we talked about, what's the programming for the space, it's bringing other practices from other communities and putting them all in one location so that you got a cluster of services. So it's new jobs that are being created within Norwalk, bringing jobs from other communities, locations in there, and then there is some of that transition.
Just from the planning committee's point of view, and with all the attention on that corridor, like you had said, the mall and other Waypoint, there's a lot going on in that area, and I know, traffic's going to be the topic of conversation along with the jobs.
Yeah, I think from
I don't even tell you
a
that,
senior
but-
housing standpoint, the traffic it's really a low density
Those
use.
bad kids not going to visit grandma and grandpa.
Yeah, so you're typically lower, where it's usually,
Right.
call it 0.65 or 0.75 per unit, because the senior housing portion that we're building will have a higher acuity model. So those are individuals that would need a lot more care, a memory care component to it as well. So those are the type of residents that don't drive. If you've got 70 to 80 units in there, call it 75 units, maybe out of the residents, you'll get one or two that drive. And then the other thing that's really nice about being on West Avenue is access to, to transportation. So for our staff and associates to be able to take public transportation, saves them money, puts more money in their pocket. Those are all really important things.
Where
for us.
are you in this process? Is this just the initial presentation, or have you been dealing with zoning? Have you?
Well, yeah, I'll let Al talk. Al Vasco, you know.
You must be the
Good
attorney.
evening, Attorney Albert Vasco, Kearney, Zulo, Flaherty, and Murphy. Right now, we're in the process of obtaining 2 parcels from the state of Connecticut, and as you know, 2 parcels from the city of Norwalk, being 340 and 350 West Avenue. The 2 pieces that we're acquiring from the state are essentially a very narrow finger along the YMCA property, and when we were doing the title searches to acquire the city's property, the state discovered that there's a triangular piece in, I think, 340 that was never transferred to the city. The city thought they owned it, everybody thought they owned it, but in fact, the state still owns it.
Is that where the parking lot's currently being proposed? The parking structure? The city property?
I think a portion of it is it may be a portion of the MOB, of the medical building,
Okay.
and a portion of it is so if you look at the picture that you have right there, flip back one page, that page that you're looking at, that triangle piece is where the parking structure would be, and then there's another small triangle piece that sits in front of it more towards the nose of the site. That would be where the medical office building would be.
The 2 pieces that we're acquiring from the state are very small, one's like 2,000 square feet, the other one's like 800 or 900 square
Right.
feet.
Those properties are on page 7, John. Which ones are city
Oh,
properties?
right, there's a page that shows the
Its own
actuals.
page, doesn't it?
Just in the bottom right,
Yeah.
there's the numbers.
And then also in conjunction with that,
Oh, yes.
when we did the title search, we discovered that Stevens Street, which used to go out to West Avenue, was never formally abandoned when the state took it for the Route 7 project. So in conjunction with this, we're going to be abandoning a portion of Stevens Street.
So it helps to properly position the building optimally on a property, because you have these little tiny little areas that you'd have to work around to be able to do that. So to best position a building, acquiring these very small pieces is important, so we're pursuing it.
Is access to the parking lot going to be on Maple Street? Or are you going to have entrances? on West
Right
Side?
now, when we talk to DPW, the only way that we could get any access off of West Avenue would be if we were heading south and turning right into the building, just because of the traffic congestion further south. And so our initial, both with SLAM and with some of our own civil guys, that it would be ingress and egress out of Maple.
Anyone have any questions?
I do. Come back to your point a little earlier. You're going to be drawing doctors' groups into this area. So you'd be drawing from 148 East Avenue or 48 Cross Street, and suddenly those buildings are empty. Are you really creating net new jobs for the city, or are you just pulling people out from
I
these
think,
other
I think
areas?
it's a combination of both. We'll still occupy space. It's not like all the locations we have are going to come to this building, because again, we would fill up the 154,000 square feet very quickly. We have to be very careful as to what we want to put there, because still using those other sites is still valuable. So otherwise we'd end up having with maybe 300,000 or 400,000 square feet, which is really not what we really wanted to have in one location. We want to be able to disperse that. So there's still locations in other towns and so on and so forth. But clearly it's a growth opportunity. We are stymied in the sense that, again, I spent so much time, and when you have to talk to the lead cardiologist, which we have, that's now hiring 2 more cardiologists, I had to try to temporarily put them across the street. I couldn't do it. And so now I have to move them to New Canaan temporarily, or the pulmonologist, which I've got to, I can't really accommodate, who want 10,000 square feet, and they only have a few thousand square feet, so they're dispersed all over the place. But the point is there's others that we're hiring. Our group has grown, the medical group, which is it's a tremendous, again, I think 600 full-time salary doctors.
And it wasn't long ago that it was in the mid-200s.
So it will. We cannot provide the growth, which I have the pressure to do, without accommodating. This building is the anchor building for our system when it comes to, physician practice in the great, within greater area of Norwalk. It doesn't mean we're giving up some of the other sites.
But Stanford Hospital did this in a big way. They brought a lot of the medical groups, the doctor groups, into centralized facilities.
Right.
So you can do some of the things you're
Well,
saying.
especially if you're talking
But, excuse me.
procedures, as an example, and you want to go to your cardiologist, you want to have that echo.
No, I agree with
You have it right
The
there.
concept works. I agree and I endorse it. But also Stanford has a lot of medical buildings that are empty. And if you drive around Stanford, you see, these offices for rent, these offices for rent. So are we going to be facing something like that as well?
I don't think so. I mean, we are, if you look at our system, since I've been at Danbury Hospital 44 years, I've been at Norwalk, since 14, and New Milford before that. So we are pretty careful as far as the selection of sites. What we're trying to do now is give up some sites to consolidate them into larger hubs. But we also, to survive in the future, we need to gain more market share.
No.
And to do that, we need to add nurses, doctors.
Yeah, and I think it's maybe less about consolidation, where you're bringing everybody in from all these different locations and you're leaving those holes. I think it's about actual growth, that they need to grow those. They might have a practice has so many physicians in it and it needs to grow, and they're growing it. And so a combination of both of those.
Okay, but this facility may not hold all those doctors, as you pointed out. So you're gonna need more space. Where would be a logical place to expand further, if you're saying you need to grow?
Yeah, and there's and we have very little space in Norwalk. So that's the thing. If you were to look at Yale and some of the other competitors, they've come into town. We are so short on our space in Norwalk. So to be able to grow and serve the population, nobody wants to hear it when the cardiologist says, I can't see you for 3 weeks. I can't see you for a month. There's not enough space to see the patients unless they want to see them in the middle of the night. So it doesn't mean that we give up every single thing that we have now. We would selectively keep those locations that make sense from the point of view of access. And they could be in other towns too, around, because Norwalk Hospital doesn't just serve Norwalk, but we are when you look at the city of Norwalk, which is the largest city, we are so short. Again, we're short, and I'm the one who gets the pressure every day with the calls. I'm hiring people. I don't have enough space, or there's some complaint in regards to the heat or something else that doesn't
No,
work.
I understand that, and again, it's a good concept, I support it, but you obviously are gonna need more space.
Yes.
So we, the city, the planning committee and redevelopment, should be looking at filling that need down the road.
Right.
Not only here, but maybe in other spots.
And if I may add one thing to it, I mean, it's not just Western Connecticut Health Network or Norwalk Hospital, it's other health systems that are migrating into these markets where, again, the aging population is continuing to grow at a feverish pace, and access to health care is going to continue to put pressure on all municipalities and being able to provide those services. And I think as a master plan or a global outlook on, when you're looking at, what we can, or what the city can offer, I think that's a great idea to really start getting in front of that as it becomes, much more of a need where you're not able to meet that need any longer because you didn't get in front of, the expectation of, needing more space like you.
Or going outside of Norwalk.
Or leaving Norwalk.
Right, better having funding, being proactive, coming up with solutions like where can we put them if they need to grow
Yeah.
and
To
expand.
John's point, and were you done?
I guess I am.
No, you was.
No, go ahead.
So, say if the hospital were to eventually need more space for their medical services, is the partnership between Maple Woods and the hospital, would they eventually be allowed to move into the space that is currently being dedicated to senior living down the road? No? Okay, that's it. Don't you have some questions? I want to keep this going.
For you gentlemen over there, just rapid fire some questions, and I only need rapid fire answers, okay? Net, how many employees? You told me that you anticipate about 80 new jobs on the Maplewood side. Hospital, new jobs, net.
Yeah.
Consolidating programs over there, is there an estimate? It's gotta be an estimate, you got parking spaces.
It's got to, I don't have a number right here, but it's got to be in the hundreds. I mean, honestly, I would believe.
So you're figuring a couple new employees that aren't being shuffled from other things, at the end of the day, there should be a couple of more employees.
There'll be some of that, but most of it is really growth of the existing practices to be able to accommodate the volumes that they have.
I got it. They usually.
Yeah,
Yeah, more support staff, admin and tax.
Because that's the question
Yeah.
being asked, is this just taking 4 different locations and just reorganizing those people in one facility versus, as part of the redevelopment, what you're looking for, are we adding new jobs to the area? And that's what I'm trying to get a handle on. It is anticipated to be 150 jobs, 200 jobs. If you're comfortable with 200, not being too exaggerated, is that a comfortable number, 150 jobs?
I would say.
Are there new
I would
jobs?
say,
I mean, maybe I
I
would
would
ask
say
that way.
That's the
more
point I'm
likely
getting.
more than
Yeah, I know,
that,
that's what
more
I'm trying to
likely,
get.
more than that.
Can we get an
Because
answer on that?
remember, we're still not we're still where we have some of the other locations that we need to keep in those, to be accessible in those communities like a Wilton. But it is in Norwalk we're the shortest. So a physician practice, can have like cardiology, it's gonna have like, 10 cardiologists. And right now, I think they've got 3 or 4.
Are those the same 10 at the hospital now? That's what we're trying to find out.
No, it's,
Okay, so
it's an increase, yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but it's like, we're
Yeah.
more of a fact
go
finding.
ahead.
So can you get us an approximate number, what you feel would be a net amount of employees on the
Yeah,
hospital
sure,
side? They've
sure.
already got an answer on the Maplewood side. All right, so
Yes,
we're
okay.
comfortable with those units will provide another 8 employees. You said the garage is beyond what zoning requires because you want it that way, man. You got over 1,000 spaces in this thing.
Oh,
I mean, and you only got 80 units.
I
so-
think, I believe, like, it was zoning is, I think, 5 per 1,000.
5 per 1,000.
And it's 6 per 1,000.
We're 6 per, so the Maplewood Senior Living is about, call it 75 parking spaces. The retail is probably another 85, so let's say it's about 150. The remaining is 6 per 1,000 on that 154,000 feet. So that gets you to that 920, 930. And so when we typically do medical office or ambulatory surgery centers, there's some loss factor or amount that's allocated towards, say, bathrooms or waiting areas or offices, and that number drops down. It can drop down 15% to 30% to get to something that's probably more like the equivalent of, on the gross square footage, 3.5 per 1,000 or 4 per 1,000. But here, when we were talking with Morrison about having the accessibility and having sufficient parking and what the hospital wanted, they wanted to stick with even a greater number and go with 6 per 1,000 on the full amount with no loss. So that's how we got to it.
Okay,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we're always fighting with
Right.
zoning about you ask too much from everybody, and,
Right.
you know, and I'm looking, you're asking for more, okay. The retail component of part of this, you have to figure it in, is that because you just feel it's, because it's kind of mandatory in the zoning, mandatory in that particular design district, that you're trying to pacify that? If you could get relief from that, would you want relief from that?
You know, I don't think so. As we're programming out that space, and when there is actually, in the architectural and design world, when it gets to healthcare, there is a concept of a center for healthy living and a center of wellness, and it has that component in it. It's part of that whole experience.
It's a stretch calling it retail, though,
Yeah.
to be honest with you, but that's okay. I just, you know, because
Ground
you
floor
drive it.
activated.
Right, it's right, and
It's okay, you drive down, there's enough available
Yeah.
retail space.
And
Now-
one of the things that we did on our Bethel property up in Bethel, Connecticut, and it's a memory care community, we created a resource center for the public. It's about 2,500 square feet, and it provides people, and it's a private entrance on the building, but it provides individuals that are looking for resources with regards to any form of dementia, be it Alzheimer's disease or Lewy body disease, to be able to go in without having the pressure of sales, where they have people that they can talk to, they can grab a cup of coffee, they can have, fruit and pastries, or sandwiches are there, we put them out, and it gives some people a level of comfort where they have a place to go to ask questions, and they can do their own research in an environment that is, just conducive to being not pressured. And so, we would consider doing something in that space as well that's open to the public. So those individuals.
So you're not concerned with the same, my question, I was kind of thinking, you need to get rid of that retail component, or you're just trying to placate the system. That's all I'm saying. The answer is,
No, we're not
you
trying
want
to.
it, okay, that's
no,
done.
we want it.
Done.
Yeah.
Pilot programs, state programs, are you applying for any tax programs from the state of Connecticut? Look for tax relief from any of this as the hospital gets?
No.
So this is gonna be straight out full-born tax?
Yep.
Better yet, okay. Best part was just now, so, have you given any thought to contacting the Historical Association about the two, Victoria
have.
House and the other one, to see if there's any value to it?
We did. Sonia, next week, we're working to meet with someone, again, trying to be proactive, get in front of it, and we talked about it at our meeting last week, just to make sure that there's, we follow that, run that drop to make sure there's no issues.
So they did tear down pretty much a landmark building when they built the new pool there. That was famous architect that built the Victorian house that was there, but that's okay. See, I'm old enough. Don't pick on the old section of the hospital. I was born there, my wife was born there, and all my kids were born there.
That's all I need to know.
Really old one.
No, not across the street, which was the original Spartan Distributors. But that one was it. The traffic, somebody brought it up, that is gonna be important because the mall's gonna put a lot of strain on West Avenue and that, and I'm sure there's
Right.
more construction, so I'm sure it's gonna be a sensitive issue no matter where you go. I mean, I think this is more positive personally than me than the mall, but.
Right.
Headline. No, I'm just
I know, no, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. It should be off peak, I don't have much on
Those
Saturday and
marks.
Sunday going over there, but. Okay, I'll just make sure I go there. And somebody mentioned that you're already, explain to me how you're already acquiring the property when it has a big, long process to go through to acquire that property from the city.
Oh, Al, you know that you're walking through the process. You
Right,
haven't gotten to the.
We're in the process right now. We've spoken to the mayor, we've spoken to the corporation council, we're in the process of.
So you haven't put any applications in for anything?
No, not yet, no.
Okay, and then my last question, so I don't know how this is gonna work. Depending on how accurate that design is in there, what parcels you're acquiring and the shapes they're on, whether that's accurate or not, part of that looks like it interferes with the bike walk that was put in there.
Okay.
So,
No, it does not, actually.
it was a, okay.
No.
The bike path.
One thing on the corner kind of sticks out into
The
it.
bike path is kind of to the westerly side of it, that is maintaining, and the two parcels that we're acquiring from the state.
What I'm saying, no, I'm asking that right there.
What page are you on?
I am on, well, if they numbered, I can tell you that.
It might look at.
They are
Right,
numbered.
Oh, they are
it's not
numbered.
gonna, it's just, it's a thick boundary around that.
That's why I asked, that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
You have any thoughts about acquiring the gas station across the street?
I just got that approved.
What, that little corner station? We should take it by eminent domain, in my opinion. Okay, I got it. Huh?
Parkland.
Well, there's money coming, yeah, well, that was the other designation, I'm sorry, that, you're right, thanks for bringing that, because I did write my, I couldn't read my handwriting, thanks for the purple pen. No, I just want to make sure that, it shouldn't have been, but to make sure there's been no designation on that property anymore. That's Parkland, that throws another ball of wax that you gotta find some other space somewhere else, i.e. the gas station.
You all done?
Yeah, aren't you glad?
Thank you, Doug. Anybody else have any questions? Barbara? No? John? All right, thank you all for coming out.
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.